I'm really appreciative of the opportunity that Wayne and the elders have given us to give a report on our work in Honduras, the trip that we took. And we can go ahead and cue those slides up. So I was in discussion early on in this process when we got back with Eddie, and we came up with this idea of a drop in the bucket, and we're going to kind of develop that theme a little bit tonight. But I want to start out and just say that I appreciate this congregation so much and the support that you have given our team throughout the process. I think the idea first began a couple of years ago. I've mentioned this on Eddie's doc. We were there talking about doing something big and kind of getting something that the church could rally around. And then this past fall, I went to the eldership and kind of pitched the idea, and I mean, they just jumped on it. They were super supportive of everything. A month or so later, they approved the entire budget, and were just super, super supportive. And then we put out a call for people, and I was hoping we would get 4 or 5 people, maybe 6. And we have 17 that stepped up, which was just amazing. And I think all 17 are here tonight except for Fiona is at Bible camp, so we're going to give her a pass. But the team stepped up, and it really went beautifully. It all kind of came together, and God's hand was involved in all of that. And so we thought tonight we would share our story. And I thought, since you guys have heard me talk a lot about Honduras from this pulpit, I wanted to let the guys on the team, some of whom had not been on mission trips before, some had, but I wanted you to kind of hear the experience from their eyes, from their perspective. And so we split up the week by days, and each guy took a day or two, and they're going to share their perspective. Just want to mention up front that there was a lot of preparations that went into this. They're kind of depicted there in photos, and this is a very photo-driven kind of presentation tonight. You're going to see a lot of pictures, but we had a lot of administrative things to do, paperwork. We had to raise money. We had to get our passports and our tickets, and obviously a lot of prayer went up. We also had several team meetings where we got together and tried to prep everyone. And then we put out a call to the congregation that we needed stuff, and y'all delivered. Okay, I mean, big time. Whatever we asked for, it just started coming in. And Dan sitting back there, just an example of this. He contacted me one day, and he goes, "You need shoes?" And I was like, "Well, we could probably take some shoes." And he said in his deep voice, he goes, "I know a shoe guy." So he knows this shoe guy in Friendsville that works out of his basement. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I said, I'll go see the shoe guy in Friendsville in the basement. And so he took me there, and he has a shoe guy, and he works out of his basement. And I brought home 150 pairs of shoes that day. Okay. Karen also had a contact at a shoe place, and she made a pretty good donation that got us a whole bunch of other shoes. So we ended up, I wasn't even thinking shoes were going to be something we were going to really specialize in. And I guess we brought 300 or 400 pairs of shoes with us to Honduras. And you're going to see how that plays out later in the presentation. But it wasn't just shoes. It was other things. It was bears, and it was dresses, and it was, we shipped $350 worth of children's vitamins we sent over there based on your contributions. And we funded houses, and we did a whole lot of other things. And so this entire congregation stepped up. We may be the ones wearing olive green tonight, but every one of you all could be in olive green tonight because you helped us in some way with your prayers, with your financial support, with your donations, and that just kind of fuels everything that we're trying to do in Honduras. So we want to thank you all for that. You guys know the team. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. Just wanted to kind of introduce them to you again. I will say this. Right after we had the first deadline of signups, and we kind of knew what the team would look like. I put the names in a spreadsheet because I do everything in a spreadsheet, and there's a lot of stuff to track. And I remember talking to Janet that night, and I said, I'm looking over this list of people, and this team has a lot of potential. Like, there's a lot of big-hearted people on this team, and you guys, when you see these faces and you see them up front here, you'll see that. And I said, these people have big hearts, and they already know each other. They've known each other for several years, even longer than they've known me and Janet. And I said, this team has really high potential. And then we get over there, and this team just delivered. Couldn't be more proud of them. I've been on mission trips before, and I've been on mission trips with big groups, and with a group of 17, you would expect to have one or two that maybe don't quite fit in. It's just not really a good mission for them. They're super uncomfortable, whatever. We had every person on our team was involved, and I mean on every project. So it didn't matter whether we were working a house or a clinic, whatever it was, everyone just sort of found a spot, found a job, got involved, helped out, worked together, and that wasn't because we told them what to do. They just kind of gravitated to whatever their natural strength was, and that was just a beautiful thing to see, and I see God's Spirit, at work in that. And it's not just me. I know I'm somewhat biased about that, but Tim and Marcia, who are the missionaries on the ground there, they're our team leaders. They commented independently to me different nights. They said, your team just really works together well, and to have so many people on their first mission trip, and 13 of our 17 had never been on a mission trip before. They said to have so many new people who just work together so well and get so much done is very unusual, and they've been doing this for about 25, 30 years. And so just an outstanding team, couldn't be more proud of them. And so you see 4 of them here, and there are 5 more of us. You're going to see a common theme of little children tonight. We had a lot of interactions with little kids, and it was really a special time with them. And of course, Flavio, I don't know that he rented that little wagon, but he somehow found himself in it, so we had to get a picture of him. We'll talk more later about the shoes and Brian, but Brian, I called him our head shoe guy, and he always had the suitcase full of shoes with him, and we passed out a lot of shoes in Honduras. I'm not going to single out individual people, but I do want to mention Erica. Erica was our translator along with her father. And I mean, you guys just would have been amazed by her. She just jumped into everything. I don't care whether we were ordering food at a restaurant or whether we were at a children's home or at a job site, whatever it was. Erica just jumped in with her enthusiasm that you guys know about and her language skills, and just sort of made things happen. And I will say that I was just so proud of her and the example that she set there, as well as everybody else up there that you see a picture of. So really, really just an outstanding team. So one of the aspects I wanted to mention before I turn it over to the fellas is, and again, the shoes weren't really something I expected. The other thing that I guess I hadn't really thought about, hadn't really planned for, but we had men on this trip who stepped up in a big way. We had 3 men in Honduras who gave devotionals for the very first time. Okay, in a public setting. They did it there, and you're going to hear those same guys tonight, 3 of them. One of the guys led a public prayer for the first time. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal when you haven't done that before in your Christian journey, and then you just kind of thrust yourself into that role. You just say, I'm just going to go do it, and then you go and do it. And I love this Eleanor Roosevelt quote. It says, do one thing every day that scares you. And the idea there is you want to work outside of your comfort zone. You want to challenge yourself. And so I saw that on this trip, and not just with the men leading devotionals, leading prayers, but I saw it on job sites. I saw it in teenage girls operating chainsaws for the first time. I saw it in women up on roofs putting in a roof for the first time. People, one of our ladies at a hospital praying for a sick child, and just people doing things that may not have necessarily been something they do a lot that comes naturally, but they were working outside their comfort zone. And we can do that because of 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. In other words, God has our back. God is gonna fill in the gaps, whatever our weakness is, whatever our deficiency is. We've got God that is gonna be with us and is going to empower us, and I just kind of saw that happen about every hour in Honduras, and it just really stuck with me. So really, again, I appreciate this team. Back that up one. So getting there, this is a few pictures of our journey, which went relatively well. One thing you don't want to do on a plane is fall asleep next to Fiona. That can be trouble, as Eddie found out. The thing about Brook, pretty much every photo, and I went through, 500 photos to prepare for this thing, but pretty much every photo, Brook was eating something. So I don't know what's up with that. And then we get to the airport, and we got through all the luggage and all that, and we thought, man, I thought this is going so well, so early in the morning. And then Flavio forgot his insulin, and so that was a little bit of a panic. I don't know what happens to an old Mexican man who doesn't get his insulin, but I figure it can't be good. So we sent Eric back, and I guess Lilia brought it. We figured that out. She's running through the airport like OJ in the commercial, and got the insulin, got on the plane, and we were able to get to Honduras on time, and were able to board that purple Barney bus. And so getting there was not a problem. So I'm a guy that likes words, and I like to study words and their background. And you guys are familiar with the idiom, the expression, a drop in the bucket. We all know what that means. A very small amount compared with what is needed. What I didn't know until this week, preparing for this lesson, was that idiom comes from Isaiah 40:15. It says, "Behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket, and are regarded as a speck of dust on the scales. Behold, he lifts up the islands like fine dust." So we have this idea of a drop in a bucket, that our efforts in life, our efforts as Christians, could be viewed as just a drop in the bucket. And when you think about Honduras, and when you think about the needs there, so much is needed. They have needs, incredible needs physically. There's so much poverty, so much despair there in terms of their economic situation. Spiritually, they have great needs. There's so much that needs to be taught there. So many of them are so far away from God, or they have false religions, whatever it might be. But there's so much needed. And then you look at our team of 17 people going in there, and we get to spend about 6 days actually working, and you go, well, that sounds kind of like a drop in the bucket. Like, can it really make a difference, just our little drop? Or are we just kind of kidding ourselves, just kind of wasting our time? And so tonight, kind of the theme we want to use as we go through this is the idea that everything we did was just a drop in the bucket. It was just another drop in the bucket. And we're going to hopefully see through these presentations, and we'll kind of wrap it up at the end, just what God can do with a drop in the bucket.
Good evening. So some of this may be a little bit repetitive of what Steve said, but I'd like to thank the congregation here at Eastside, all those that donated financially to our efforts, to all those that gave all the items to give away, and all the prayers. We really appreciate it, and we couldn't have done it without you all. I'd like to thank the team. You guys are awesome. I feel like we grew together. And we grew closer together. I'd like to thank Steve and Janet. I can only imagine the hours that you guys spent preparing us for this, and I felt like, I'm sure the team does too, that we were prepared, and I thank you for that. So every day, Steve would ask us, how did you see God today? Maybe not just once, but sometimes twice a day. As I reflected on this, some of the things were fairly easy to find out, fairly easy to see. But the more and more that I thought about it, I looked at my girls that I had there, Brianna and Fiona. They were not afraid to jump in and do whatever was needed. I was proud, a proud father. And I think about that. As we serve God, how proud he is of us. Those who do his will and serve the Lord, he is proud of us. Then the Matthew 25:37-40. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did you see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did you see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it for me. James 1:26-27. If anyone among you thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this one religious is useless. Pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their trouble, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. Didasco is a children's home. It's out in the middle of pretty much nowhere. Torch found Didasco several years earlier. They were on their way to a women's prison, but somehow got lost. They made several lefts, several rights, several more lefts, several more rights. And then they finally came across the children's home, Didasco. As you can see here, this is our team plus all the children at Didasco. Jorge is on the left side there. He's the one that runs Didasco. Jorge would start by saying that his mission was to try to reach as many kids to Christ and give them the love that they were not shown in accordance to what Mark 10:14 says. But when Jesus saw this, he was indignant and said to them, allow the children to come to me. Do not forbid them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. He realized that in poverty lies ignorance and knows what kind of influence he has there. They often speak about God's word and how important they are. They are children of God, and he can use them. It doesn't matter how vulnerable they think they are, God has a purpose for their life. They are important, and their life is worth. Jorge went to explain that he often fears these mothers will continue to bear children without the means to take care of them. He understands that there are no impossibles for God, so his prayer is to get more children. He currently has 17 kids, 6 male and 11 females. He wants the children to understand the principle and to see that age does not impair them to work. They can do great things with the help of God. Up in the top left, you can see the men painting nails of children. Also, we've got Betsy in there, who's probably the professional. Betsy's down at the bottom left, painting some of the older girls. And then in the middle, if you want to soften the heart of a East Tennessee hillbilly, you bring in Tatiana. Up in the upper right, Tim and Hunter are playing soccer with some of the boys. And then the bottom right again, even Eddie can do some nails. Kevin and Tatiana coloring. Just about everywhere Kevin went, Tatiana went. Top right, some more soccer. Bottom right, I'm not sure what happened there, Steve. But Steve's getting his feet washed by Miss Donna. Bray and one of the little ones, Betsy. Betsy was always with the little ones. It was awesome to see. Far right is where we were giving out shoes. and I believe everyone there got shoes. Miss Donna and one of the little ones. In the middle, Flavio getting his nails done. And then on the right, looks like Brook. Brook probably has some experience painting nails as well. Getting their feet washed and their hair washed. More washing. There's some more. Miss Debbie giving out some of the dresses. Daughters of the King. The Daughters of the King, hair washing, feet, getting their feet washed. Females in Honduras are the lowest of the low. They're treated extremely bad there. So just doing a little bit for them, making them feel special, giving them just a special moment to know that they are worthy is what we were trying to do. The boys and us playing soccer. As you can see, they all have new soccer shirts on. They all have new shoes. All new soccer balls. Steve and Janet with a couple of girls that they've been seeing year and year again. One of the dresses on the right. We had a lunch for them there. They wanted chicken and not pizza, so Betsy's got the chicken there in the bowl. They were shredding the chicken, chips and things like that. Here we are serving them. I think Brooke must be doing a magic trick. Them prepping the food. Just another drop in the bucket. One last thing. I'd like to share a great moment that I can reflect on that we had. I won't mention which day this was. It wasn't this day. But I was sitting with my brother in Christ, and we were on the way back on the bus. And we sang. It must have been for about an hour. And that was such an awesome time together. We sang so much that Erica lost her voice. I know that she was tired at that point in time, but what a great moment that was. Thank you.
Well, thanks again for allowing us to report on our work in Honduras. It was an amazing work, and I'm definitely privileged to be a part of it and to be a part of this team. So for starters, Jana, Betsy, and I, we had a wonderful experience. It was very spiritually uplifting and strengthening. So definitely thankful for the opportunity. So the drop in the bucket that I'm going to be talking about is our house build number 1. But before we get into the particular house build, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the houses themselves. So they're really, by our standards, really no more than a nice storage shed. But what a difference that they make in the lives of these people in Honduras. There's so much of an improvement over their current situation. A house kit is $1,900 each. And that actually includes a $200 starter kit that they get, which is kind of the essentials to starting a home. The house is not intended to be their forever home. It's intended to last about 10 years. And, as we were building these things, we could kind of see that, But it's, like I said, it is definitely an improvement over what they have now. There were 3 houses that were funded by our congregation. One was funded by the Eastside congregation in honor of Dean Buchanan. And so that's the house we're building here on House Build 1. And then one was funded by Donna on behalf of Dean. And that was House Build 2, that will be talked about later. And then a third one was funded by Carl Vineyard. And that one was actually built the week after we left. But we got to see where that house build was going to happen. And the house builds, they are an effective tool in planting the seed of the gospel of Jesus. There were several families that were pointed out to me at the church building that who had initially received a house and had went on to become a faithful Christian. And I will also mention that, just some questions that I had. The Torch Missions, they are good stewards of the houses. There is a process that they follow to determine who gets a house. And they went on to even tell me that at times, or there has been an occasion where they found out that the recipient had actually lied to them, and they went back and disassembled the house and took it and gave it to somebody who was deserving. So house build number 1, it was for Cynthia. So let me tell you a little bit about Cynthia, the drop in the bucket. So this comes from Erica. She had the ability to sit down and have a conversation with Cynthia, and took great notes. So Cynthia is a 25-year-old single mom to 2 children. Daughter Rocio, age 3, and son Justin, age 1. Justin was somewhat sick a lot. He struggled with bronchitis. Cynthia's source of income is from selling pottery that her brother Kristen makes, and she paints. So that's how she makes a living and provides for her family. And we saw that store where she sold it. When Cynthia's partner abandoned them, that partner was chosen specifically because it's common that they're not married. And so when he left, the father, her mom, Evelina, took them in. Evelina worked 3 jobs while going through cancer treatments to be able to pay for the property on which they live. On that property, all of her children have built their homes now, including Cynthia. Cynthia's father had left when she was just an infant. Her dad heard about Evelina buying a home and returned and set fire to the house, which destroyed the home and burned all their belongings. One of the children, Cynthia's siblings, was in the home and suffered many wounds from the fire. She currently still lives with her mom, who takes care of her. So Kristen, Cynthia's brother, he is a Christian. And that's how they found out about her and the need. And it wouldn't be surprising to me that we return and she'll be a Christian, But Kristen is one of Dalton's students in the R1T1 program, and I think it'll be someone will speak more about that later. So here we are at the build beginning there. They're actually on the front porch of a neighboring house to where our build was going to take place. So when we arrived, the build site is ready. It's prepped. The material is already there. They have a kit, so they know exactly what's to do. They already know the material list, and so as the corner posts are being set, making sure the structure is square, we gathered our tools. They have all the tools you need there, all the nails, everything you need, all the equipment, protective equipment, gloves, and that sort of thing. So we get fitted up, and then we start moving the material, staging it, getting ready for when we're starting to hammer nails. Let's see, we see some of that happening here with Jana and Betsy and Donna, and let's see others. Let's see, Flavio, I guess, is carrying some wood there, and then we've got one of the posts going up. And then once the corner posts are set, then we divide up in teams. So there's like a wall team and a floor team, basically. There's a job for everybody, of every skill level, of every size and strength. And so our team, everybody found a place and was very helpful and effective in getting the job done. I think we built this house in maybe 6 hours. I think the first one was 6 hours and the second one was 5 hours or something, so we were steady at it, and we would take breaks and rotate people through as people would get hot, and so they didn't get dehydrated and such. But the picture there with Bree and Erica and Lana and Betsy are they're doing the wall team there. So basically there's somebody on the inside holding these boards in place and pulling them flat and flush that they're so that there are no gaps between the board, because the lumber just wasn't great, but we forced it and made a good solid structure. And then Betsy up there running the chainsaw. Thankfully she didn't take after her dad and cut her leg. But I was off somewhere out of shot, a little nervous probably. And then that's Fiona right up on the roof, and that's Dalton's son up there as well. And so as the floor is being built, the walls are going up, and then so once the floor walls are put in place, I guess prior to that, the homeowner decides where they want their door. They get one door and one window. It's like, okay, well, where do you want it? So we lay out the studs, I guess you will call them, based on that. And so basically we just frame over everything, or put siding over everything, and then we go back and put some frames in place for the door and for the window, and then they attach some hinges, and then they cut the slats out, and there's your door and there's your window. So that's happening, and then eventually the roof will start, and so you'll have somebody that's eager to get up on the roof and join that team. And in our case, it was Erica. So she was did not hesitate to get up there. So I think she had done that before. By the looks of it, she did really good. So. And here's early on with the corner posts are being set, and looks like I'm sitting there holding up some post diggers, so that showed about what I did. Here's Bree running the chainsaw at the end. So I'll mention with the chainsaw, I mean, that's it. There's no skill saws. This is not, plus or minus 1/8 of an inch type work. It's pull out the chainsaw and make the cut and hammer it up, and it's good. So, and there's Miss Donna and Debbie working with Dalton's son on the floor. And Betsy taking after her dad, just holding up the post hole diggers. And Steve and going a little crazy with the saw. And there's Erica actually taking the notes from her conversation with Cynthia that I just told you about. So Eddie and Lana, and Lana was such, she did so much. I mean, it was just so great to see all the ladies that I don't know if they participated in anything like this or not, but they were very, very contributed a lot. So, and there's Fiona celebrating something. There's Lana peeking over the top of the board, and if you're not careful, you'll find yourself enclosed without the door or the windows cut. So, there's Cynthia again on the left with her two kids. And there was little kids. I assume they were probably cousins to the kids, right? That lived there in that thing that our kids, who went, like Betsy and Fiona. I want to say Fofo, but Fiona and Bree would play with and such. We had a little bit of riffraff that came up on our build site one day, but put them to work. So. And then once the house was complete, you can see there's the completed structure inside with the dedication and presentation in honor of Dean Buchanan to Cynthia and her family. So that was really special to be a part of. It really was. And this is our team at the end of the first build. So just a drop in the bucket. So that's our first house build.
Again, thank you to the congregation. just a blessing to go on mission trips. This was my seventh, first one with Torch, but every time I've gone, Eastside's been just a critically important part of the trip, and I just want to say not everybody gets to go on these trips, but there's a lot of people that are a part of it in their own special way. So I'll be covering day 4 and 5. I was just looking up a drop in the bucket. Out of curiosity, I said, what's the anatomy of a water drop sitting there? And I noticed, I just thought, when you put a drop in a bucket and put a second drop in the bucket, what happens? They coalesce. There's two things that happen. There's adhesion and cohesion. They stick to each other, and they stick to the surfaces they're put on. And so that's an interesting property of water. But I saw that with our team. As we worked together, serving God together, we drew closer together, and also we left our mark on those that we came in contact with, which was an awesome experience. So day 4, this is Sunday. So on day 4, there is a congregation right there on site. If anybody wants to go on a mission trip, I tell you what, for the first time, Torch is a consideration. I do not think of the 7 trips I've been on, I ran across a mission program that was better suited for first-time missionaries than Torch. And I would highly recommend you talking to Steve and Janet, who did a phenomenal job leading us. But this was just well run and very doable. My only regret, I've gotten to go on a mission trip with all of my family members now that Mom and I went, except Tate. He's going with me next time. I'm not going to leave him behind. So Sunday, we got to worship with the congregation that meets there on this campus that they have. They have a nice building that Torch has built, and they have a full-time preacher. And we worshiped with this congregation. It was a blessing. Isn't it awesome when we get visitors? This morning I was worshiping online, but I hear there were a lot of visitors. Isn't it encouraging when we get to worship with visitors from out of town? And I'm sure we encouraged that congregation when we showed up. So it was wonderful to worship. Revelation 15:4, who shall not fear you, O Lord, and glorify your name? For you alone are holy, for all nations shall come and worship before you. It's a picture of what heaven looked like. All these nations from around the world getting together and worshiping God. What a blessing. So this is the Santa Ana Church of Christ. I know it was a packed house. I don't know how many were there, but it was standing room only. And certainly one of the highlights was worshiping our God together with our brothers and sisters in Honduras. There was children's classes, and of course the services were in Spanish. Erica was nice to tell us the 10,000-foot view of the lessons, but Erica, I'm sure she shared it with a lot of the team members, said it was just a wonderful lesson and very, very well done. And it was neat to see all the kids. Aren't kids the same everywhere? They're just enthusiastic learners and joyful. No matter where I've been, it's just like that. And I'm glad our kids are at camp this week. A lot of our kids went. So Sunday afternoon, it was a rest day. It was nice. It was kind of a nice mix with the Torch, knowing that there's a lot of first-time missionaries. There was time to rest. It was a lot of work, a lot of wonderful work, but there was a time to recuperate and rest. So Sunday afternoon, after our siesta, we went to a close village, maybe just 15-minute drive by bus, Ohohona, and we got to go to this really nice restaurant and toured that town, kind of a touristy town, historic town. It was very quaint, and so that was a neat experience to fellowship and draw close. It was just neat to spend 7-8 days with this group of people, and like Brian said, drew closer to you guys, and that's awesome. It'll help us in our work from this point on here in this town, won't it? So everyone had a wonderful meal, spent time with the Hines family, and they were special people, of course. I guess I should point out Cisco, the guy next to Donna in the upper right quarter with his hat on backwards. He was one of our translators. He's from Orlando, Florida, and joined us, and just a neat, high-energy guy that joined us and spent a lot of time working with us every day. I'm not sure what that says, but I do see the word salsa. And and so Brook's looking like he's enjoying it. So everyone had a great meal and toured some of the shops and around that little village. Tim's got his mind on work, I think. So also that day, it was great because Flavio and Erica, everyone, when Flavio and Lilia were here, and we all know about their hospitality and their big hearts, and Erica and Flavio reminded us of that while they were there. So they cooked and prepared a wonderful dinner. That's Jen Hines, one of the missionaries that's there full time with Dalton. So Dalton and Jen are married and have 3 boys, and they live there full time. And Tim and Marcia is Dalton's parents, and they come in periodically for the mission trips. So that's the kitchen. They're preparing the food. We had a wonderful fellowship that evening. And that was a good day, a restful day, but a day worshiping the Lord. Day 5. This day we split up into 2 groups. The first house build, we all worked on that house. And the second house build, we split up. Half of us went to the house build, half of us went and did a medical clinic. And that was great, but we did divide and conquer that day. Interestingly, Torch has built a medical clinic on their campus, and they fully staff it with nurses and a full-time doctor and a full-time pharmacist, and they provide free care to that village of Santa Ana, Honduras, free. No one pays a dime. And so the guy in the scrubs on the right, he's the doctor. Honduras does not have medical schools, so their future doctors go to Cuba or some other country, get their medical degree, and come back and serve a couple of years. But now he's hired on as Torch's doctor. So he drives 2 hours to the clinic. His family, his wife and 2 kids live 2 hours away, and he stays there for the Monday through Friday work week before he goes back to his family on the weekends. But it was great. He speaks good English, so it was wonderful working with him. So that's the team that went to the clinic. The pharmacist is on the left next to Debbie. So we went to a village very close, maybe 15, 20-minute drive, and they're Lenca Indians. Am I saying that right? Lenca, Lenca. They're indigenous Hondurans. So they're the people that were there before the Spaniards arrived. And they're kind of a nation within a nation. They're self-governing. So we kind of entered into the village. I'm not sure what that sign says. I kind of private, keep out, probably, something along those. Private property. It's a very large area of land that they own, and the Honduran government keeps out of their business. They're self-governing. And the Lenca Indians, the Torch is built in this building. This is their church building, where the church, Iglesia de Cristo, meets here every Sunday. And so they had built this building for the church there, and they've been regularly going back into this community to support them and encourage them. This entire community, maybe 100 homes. I think we handed out about 100 bags of food that day. So about 100 homes. I don't think I saw any electricity. I saw one house with a solar panel that could have maybe ran a light for a couple hours in the evening. So they're off grid completely. So we started the clinic, and we saw 101 patients that day. Jimmy and I, and the nurses and the pharmacist, and I know Debbie and Mom and some others helped with pharmacy, and Kevin and Hunter handed out glasses, which is wonderful. Very organized, very pleasant people, very grateful. So the clinic just basically, Jimmy left his clinic that day, and the pharmacist, and they grabbed their medicine and busted over there, and we just had a clinic in the church building, because these people, they don't have cars. It is very difficult for them to get the 20 minutes by bus to Santa Ana to go to the free clinic. So I was talking to a lot of folks. They just didn't get medical care because of the drive, because they didn't have access to the clinic to go to Santa Ana. So we set up right in the church building. I did not deliver a baby. Here's a wonderful picture of Hunter and Kevin handing out glasses. Lots of people got the glasses, didn't they, Kevin? About 100 folks. That's wonderful. I know I can't function without my readers. So Jimmy and I just saw whatever came our way. They were very well stocked. We didn't have to bring any medicine. They had it all there, free. And I was able to point a couple of people to resources. Having Jimmy there was amazing. He knew how the Honduran medical system worked and how to get people help. And really was a wonderful day of showing compassion and showing care and just drop after drop in a bucket. The pill pushers, yes, no narcotics were given out, but we did give a lot of inflammation, pain medicine, fever reducers, antibiotics, just anything we could leave behind. Vitamins, lots of vitamins. There's some pictures of Hunter and Kevin at work, Bree doing what she does so well, taking care of patients. I get to work with Bree every day now, which is awesome. And of course, it was done right in the building there. Welcome, Church of Christ. So this little girl, she broke my heart. She was 8, but she looked 4. And I've been researching her case since I've been home. It's really bothered me, but she had fallen, and Mom had no way to get her into the village, so I didn't know what I was going to see, so I pulled the bandage off, and there was just this gaping laceration on her forehead. And so I'm like, I didn't have any lidocaine with me. She needed stitches bad, but I had glue. I had Dermabond, so I glued her up. And then I started talking to her about why she fell. She fell because her hips are fused, her wrist is fused, her neck is fused. She could not move, and so she's falling and tripping all the time. And she had never sought medical care because they have no money, they have no transportation. And so I've talked to a couple of people, and she may have a juvenile ankylosing spondylitis. I could not move her hips, I could not move her spine, so she shuffles. It was just a disheartening case. You can kind of see her right wrist there. It's swollen. I don't know if you could see that. That's just bony fusion of her right wrist. So I've emailed Dr. Jimmy, and we're working out sending money to get her some x-rays and get her some workup started. And I'm going to try to do a video conference with maybe a specialist. We're trying to coordinate this for this girl to try to give her some follow-up care, since her main issue wasn't the cut in her forehead, it was her immobility. But just a drop in the bucket. So many trips I've been on, medical trips. It was so awesome. Every other trip has been medical for me. So awesome to just do that one day and be part of something else. And so I'm very grateful that Steve and Janet, they kind of help coordinate that. I'm glad I got to do that, but it was so awesome to do other things. And but you leave there as a physician just kind of overwhelmed sometimes, and you feel like it's a drop in the bucket, but you realize God is in the business of taking drops and doing amazing things with it. David and a stone, Rahab and a cord, Moses and a staff, on and on and on. Drop in the buckets is what God can use so that he gets the glory. Now, I was not part of this second house build. I was at the medical clinic. Half of us were at the medical clinic. The other half, I just found out that they did the second house in 5 hours with half the people. So I'm starting to wonder if I should have done the medical clinic both days. But so a similar story. I didn't get the story from Erica, but very similar. The man's not in the picture, leaves the woman with the child. This is repeated thousands and thousands of times around the world. Certainly in Honduras, it's a major problem. So I did get to show, the whole team from the medical clinic shows up at the very end of the build of the second house. So we get to walk down this slope and see where this house has been constructed. So this was what was there before. They dismantled and built the house on top of this spot, which is a very steep slope. It just looked, but that's the land that she had. That's what she made do with. So there's the mother and her daughter, and that is not the father, correct? That is brother-in-law. That's the brother-in-law. Okay, so there's the team in action. Everyone, it was just so neat. Everyone worked hard every day for the entire trip. What an encouragement to see Christians doing that day in, day out with just Christ-centered lives. It was just amazing. There's some more action photos. This girl that Betsy's with, and of course I love Betsy. She grew up treating Tate like that little girl's getting treated right now. That girl, I hope you get to see the video. I was really kind of disappointed that you didn't splice that video into this presentation. But this girl and her laughter, here in a second I'll show you, had to have been the most joyful girl in all of Honduras. In a minute I'll show you why. But everyone just enjoyed the work. It was just great to be part of you ever go to work 9 to 5 and everyone wants to go home as soon as they get there? Not here. Everyone's like, let's get to work. We're glorifying God. How exciting. We're doing what we were created to do, right? Isaiah 43:7. And so all of that just melts away. And you get a glimpse of what heaven's going to look like, because guess what? We're working there. I'm always amazed that if you look at it, work existed in the garden before sin entered. Work's going to be there in heaven. But in the midst, we've messed it up. But this is a glimpse of what the work in heaven will be like. Joyful. Purpose-driven. More bubbles, more smiles, more sweat. This girl, the video is of this girl swinging on this makeshift swing. I don't know who put it up, but Fiona, I mean, this girl just cackled, and it was amazing. You've seen it. It was contagious and infectious, I'm sure. I missed it, but I saw the video. It was awesome. That girl, what a great day. She went from living in that, you saw that shack that most of us wouldn't put our tools in the backyard in, to a brand new roof, triple the floor space, clean, and she gets to play with Fiona and Betsy and have an absolute blast for a day and get toys. I mean, we just basically just made her day. This is another plaque in memory of Dean Buchanan. We all love Dean, and just so grateful to be part of that build that Donna made possible. And that's everybody inside the house afterwards. So just thanks again, Dean and Donna, and Carl. I mean, isn't it neat? We brought the resources for another family to be helped afterwards. It's just part of God's plan, just bringing everything together providentially so that people's needs are met and He is glorified. Just a drop in the bucket. Thank you. We did get together that evening, but that was a busy day, wasn't it? We got together that same evening. Wow. Okay, so, yes, that evening, a meal that fed well over 100 people was prepared and served. We all let the community, mainly, it was a lot of Christians that were in that church, but also their friends and family came, and the room was packed. That's just half of the people that showed up. That's the women with their women's class. But we had them sit down, and I thought it was so neat that we served them the food. We would get the plate of food and take it to them, and everyone was so appreciative. Then the men and the women broke up into a women's class that Janet taught, and there's Erica translating. And then the men's class where I went was taught by Steve and translated by Tim. And that's a local preacher who assisted with the translation when Tim got it wrong. And so just a blessing, so many small acts of kindness, just a simple prayer, and just encouragement just went on and on and on in every corner of that mission trip. It was wonderful. And of course, we got to be there that evening when it was probably 9, 10 p.m. I'm not sure how late it was, but those two ladies there in the white T-shirts put on Christ in baptism. What an awesome experience to be there to see that. And of course, we're just a part of that, a drop in the bucket. There were so many people involved with these women and their conversion. They were both, I think Brook mentioned, both of them had received torch houses, right? Is that right, Steve? Yeah, 3 years earlier, a torch house went up. 3 years later, they're baptized. How many times did those teams make an impact on these women? And it didn't, whoever built the house 3 years ago may not even know that this happened yet. But that's what God does. He gives the increase. We just got to put the drop in the bucket. There were dogs frequently in the church building. So, just a drop in the bucket. Now I sit down. Thank you. Sorry.
I appreciate Eddie for finishing his assignment. Again, thanks everybody for making this possible. And it was super, super easy for a first-timer. So if you ever wanted to do a mission trip and were nervous about it, this was safe. It was super organized. It's a great first one. There was no danger whatsoever. It was really amazing. And if you're 6 years old or 80 years old, I would suggest going. All right, so I had really the end of day 5 maybe and day 6. So we prepped about 200 bags of food. After dinner, everyone was separated into groups of 3, one to pour the rice and beans, and another to hold the bag for the pour, and another to tie the bags. So one of the children that lived in the compound, plus some others, were running back and forth to take the bag food to the table of distributions. Dalton, one of the missionaries that lived there, come out and approached the groups and said, "We usually turn this into a competition." Excuse me. So Erica looks at Eddie, who is sitting next to Betsy, Fiona, and Bree, and says, "Well, competitions are for children." And Eddie says, "Yeah, but we're going to win." So they really did. They successfully won. I just don't know if the other 3 girls knew they were competing. So the next day after breakfast, we set up tables to place items that were in the food to be bagged. Coffee, pasta, seasoning, salt, sugar, rice, beans, probably some stuff I forget, but it was about 25 pounds per bag. And this is kind of like the rat race. Just set up teams and hand off and fill and hand off. And you can see the little going around to each. Basically, somebody grabbed an empty bag and went station to station to station and filled their bags. And then they took, so that's the beans and rice. That's a lot of beans and rice. And then the next day, we took about 100 bags and took them to the clinic and set up an assembly line there. And that is one drop in the bucket. Then we go to R1T1. So this was kind of a play day. We finished the food, taking the food to the clinic, and then we go into Ohohana, where R1T1 is, where it's kind of down a mountain, but not super far. So R1T1 is Reach One, Teach One, and it's a mission headed up by Dalton, the guy right there in the center. So that's Tim Hines' son, Dalton Hines. He's a full-time missionary there. He started this project to teach young men a trade as well as what he calls discipleship into Christ. So that idea is to teach a small group of men and adopt another small group and just kind of pay it forward and teach the local community there at Ohohana. So at this location, they have started a nursery, and that memory's a little foggy, but I think he hired somebody to teach him to grow from seed. So it's kind of like, you know, what Pope's greenhouse used to be. Some of it's food, some of it's decorative. There's some wealthy people around there, I think, that like to have plants at their homes. That's self-explanatory, but I talked to Donna after that, and she said she was pretending. Dalton, a side note, Dalton explained to us how he felt he was blessed by the Lord and useful with his hands, and taught carpentry to some of the guys, and they were building picnic tables and some other things to sell. And that money goes to those people he's training. So of course they replace the materials out of it, but they're making income off the whatever woodworking they have and the plants they sell. And then there's like a little dine restaurant on site at the compound, and the profits they make there, we would go there every night and have our nighttime snacks. So they're all making some sort of income and discipling, and this would really, the big picture of this is there's so much non-nuclear families in that area if he's training those people right. I know I wasn't in Steve's class this morning, but the proverb about training up your children right, that would apply here. So if he trains these young men correctly, then they're not going to run off from their partner. And there's a reason, we won't get into it, but there's a reason they don't get lawfully married there. They don't have birth certificates a lot of time. So here is Mi Esperanza. We were welcomed by Lori Connell, who told us her inspiration for starting Mi Esperanza. And one of her mission trips with Torch Missions, she had an encounter with a local woman who was handing her an infant child, and it touched her incredibly. She thought, how could this person hand me her baby, her being the mother, just knowing that I'm from the U.S. and she could be better off with us, a complete stranger. So she thought something had to be done, and this mission was born. It elevates women and shows them ways to break the cycle of intergenerational poverty. They teach women several trades like hairdressing, sewing, pottery, among other stuff. So we bought some bracelets and pottery. We all got something at the store. They make T-shirts. Other companies hire them to make T-shirts. It's a lucrative business. We were able to see firsthand the classrooms as well as all the products they make. And Flavio went to the ladies' beauty shop and asked if they could shave his beard, and they declined, saying they couldn't fix his face. So I was personally thankful to see Torch especially, but R1T1 trying to grow men and Mi Esperanza. So if something happens, if these women are self-sufficient, if the male leaves, they have a means of income, because it's not as easy there as it is here for a lady to work. And there is the Jesus statue. There's some neat history there, but you need to go see it for yourself. I would suggest signing up for, if there's a next year, sign up for next year. At the feet of Jesus, we got to see Tim Hines, who is in this bottom picture here. So he was the leader of the missionary group. Take an opportunity to connect with the community, and we met a lady and her daughter who were trying to enter this country legally and obtain a visa. We got to hear his lessons about how we may just be a drop in the bucket. However, we don't know how many lives we touched in the process here, but there too. And there is the whole group at the feet of Jesus. And really, this is a lot of drops in a lot of buckets. I appreciate you guys.
Good evening, everyone. As everyone else has said, appreciate the congregation for their support and their prayers for this mission trip. It was so how I got involved, you know, when this first was suggested, taking names of anybody that wanted to come, Deb immediately said she wanted to go. And, of course, I was wanting to go, but I was kind of on the fence, and so I was giving it some thought, and so I talked to Steve, and Steve knew that I was. He was asking me, "Well, I hear you're thinking about going." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not sure I want to make that commitment yet, and I'm a lot like that in life and other decisions too." But Steve says, "Well, I've been praying for you, you know," and I said, "All right, I'm going." So he gave me that push I needed, and he told me it would be life-changing. He was right. You know, it's life-changing. And as many others have mentioned, Kevin said, if you get the chance to go, don't wait till you're 65. I wish I'd been like Betsy and Fiona and Hunter. These guys have a great experience, and they can build on that in the future. So before I get into this, I want to also say that, you know, when we went, one of the things that I thought about is the question was raised, where did you see God today? Where did you see Jesus? And, you know, you look around at the compound there, we felt safe. It was nice, spread out. If you wanted to get away and have your thoughts, you could do that. If you wanted to be with people one-on-one, we did a lot of that, intermingling. As Eddie said, you know, the drops in a bucket get together. I felt a bond. I felt like we bonded as a group, even more so than our daily activities here in Blount County. But so it might be just seeing a parrot fly across the compound. I'm like, wow, I don't see that every day. You know, that, and you think about the beauty of a parrot. Well, you know, everything comes from God, and you can see beauty in everything. There's a plant on the grounds that if you touch it, it's like a Venus flytrap. And I've got a video of it. It just folds up. And I mean, it's just sensitive to the touch. I don't see that every day either, but I saw that as God's creation. So little things like that. And, you know, to see that, you have to look. And so when that question was raised, I started looking, and I started seeing these kind of things. So Steve sent these slides and wanted us to talk about our day and about these slides, and I was talking to Deb, and I got her notes, and she spent a lot of time writing in her journal, and I wish I'd spent more. I'm going off memory. She's going off written words that she wrote down as the week's progressing, and the next trip I'm going to do that. But so I wanted to just read strictly from her journal that day, talking about our day number 7. So starting with, I'll skip the part about my stomach problems. She started early in the morning. I thought there might be some more discussion about that since we had some stomach problems. But anyway, skipping that part, so we get up at 6:30, and again, this is Deb's journal, so I'm reading from her journal. We get up at 6:30 a.m., get ready, and head to the dining hall as most mornings while waiting for 7:30 breakfast. I write some in my journal, write warm fuzzies for members, so that's something we all did to kind of encourage one another and see where we saw God in some of our other brothers and sisters. And so I have my coffee and play with the Hines kids. Breakfast today is bacon, eggs, pancakes, watermelon, mango. Mango was excellent there. In fact, Deb already made some mango salsa. It's pretty good. So not as good as there, but pretty good. Had pineapple, cereal, juice, and coffee. After volunteers clean up kitchen, and I think Donna was probably in the kitchen cleaning up, as most of the time she was. We had morning devo. So Kevin leads singing, and I'm pretty sure that was Kevin's first time leading singing. And the time before a devo, that was my first devo. So again, thanks to Steve for encouraging me and others to kind of step up and do some of those things out of our comfort zone. And I want to back up. When I say comfort zone, you hear that a lot. And I've told somebody that The comfort zone, I look at it different now, because now I look at my comfort zone going all the way to Honduras, so I encourage people to do that. And I never felt alone, so I felt this bond with this group, and I still do, and it's powerful. It really is. So Kevin led singing. Eddie did the Devo that morning on mountains. We're on a mountain. We face mountains in life based on our perspectives. And buses, we're riding one all week, and we're staying on the right bus and making sure to get others on the bus to heaven. So Tim Haven led prayer, First Public. He did great. And she says, this trip is great for him. Thanks, Deb. We pack our sack lunches, lots of toys and clothes, Bibles, etc., into our backpacks and get on the bus. Bree stays back because she has the stomach bug now. Okay, she did mention the stomach bug. And we go to a special needs orphanage called Casa Hogar Ben Khaleth. The people working there are very kind. The patients there are mostly all adults right now and have been there most of their lives. So I'll go ahead and click to the next slide. So this is some of the folks there. It was a very emotional experience that made me even more grateful for the blessings of healthy children and grandchildren. It was fun to be able to give all the workers and patients new shoes, toys, candy, and soccer balls. I got to push a young man in a wheelchair, most were in wheelchairs, around and play a game of soccer with hands instead of feet. I also walked around with a young woman, the only one walking, that never sits down. And that's the shoes. So this next slide shows, and I call her the walker because she literally never sat down. In fact, she chose me several times to walk with her, and I think she really liked me. So as we're walking, she took me around the back way, all the way around the building. And we had to go down some steps, and I felt her pull really hard, and I looked, she has knocked her shoe off. So I had to get her sit down on the step and put her shoe back on. And I'm talking to her in English, and because I felt more comfortable talking to her rather than just lead her around. And so that was a very neat experience. And she let me put her shoe back on, and I was kind of worried that what if somebody comes around and sees me sitting down with her way outside the regular area. But anyway, it worked out. So Deb says, I got to push a young man in a wheelchair around and play a game of soccer. Okay, I read that part. We walked around the backyard holding hands several times. Tim walked with her several times also. I'm pretty sure everyone did. They have a small gift shop and sell things that the patients help make, which raises money for the orphanage. I bought a few things. I had a hard time when we left. It was fighting, crying for a while on the bus. It was such a mix of emotions. Next stop was a visit to the children at a hospital called Escuela. And this is some more of the pictures there at the special needs. So one thing I want to mention, there was one girl, so I had a little paddle ball and it had a picture of a bunny rabbit on it. And when we first got there, and I'm looking around and I'm trying to find somebody that can actually use their arms, because I wanted to be sure that they could actually use the toy I was giving them. So I saw the one girl, she could use her arms and she was in the wheelchair. And when I gave it to her, she focused on the bunny rabbit. She wasn't even focused on the paddle ball. And it was a hard paddle ball. It wasn't like the ones we got, the wooden ones that Mom spanked us with. This was a cheaper version, but anyway, she was just overjoyed with that thing. In fact, she put it down beside her, and other gifts were given out, and she was going over them other gifts, and then she saw me later, and she reached down and picked that up, and she showed me that bunny rabbit again. So she definitely remembered getting that gift. That was very special. So when we went to the hospital, this hospital is free to the public. We split up in groups of 3 or 4 with someone who could translate and visited children and their family members. We asked their names and patient's condition, age. We gave away bears from Eastside Bear Ladies, stuffed animals, dresses, toys, and most importantly, the bilingual Bibles. And I will say that let me back up. This, on the bus ride to the hospital, of course, Deb and I were sitting right behind the driver of the bus. And so I look over and I see him going, passing us on the right. This is after they passed us. And we see this kid in the bucket smiling at us. And then we see that, and his head's just bouncing off the barrel. And even the driver and Cisco were saying, Cisco said, he's never seen this before. So it was kind of uncommon that we all saw that. So it was a special moment. But when we got to the hospital, so as I said, or as Deb said in the journal, that we split up into different groups, 3 or 4. We had translators. Well, I remember going into one room, and Deb had given one of the mothers, and there was a little girl on the bed. And she was 9 years old, and I'm thinking of my granddaughter being 9 years old, and all this is touching home to me, So Deb had given the mother a Bible, and so I reached down, and Deb looked at me, what are you doing? I said, watch. And I give the little girl a Bible, and she just lit up. She was so proud to get that Bible. So that was another special moment. So it was a blessing to see faces light up when they received a Bible, and to see people reading them as we were leaving. After visiting individual rooms, we moved up to the orthopedic ward. It was one long room with many beds, and there was no AC. Windows were open. It was hot in there. I do remember that. But, as we walked through, and it was tough. It was tough emotionally to go through there in those conditions. But everybody in there, I think if we went to Blunt Memorial right now and you go in there and try to visit people, I don't think the reception would be near the same. I mean, these people were happy to see us. They were smiling. They would interact with you. We went to each bed and we asked how they were doing. We give them Bibles. We paint some more fingernails, give out some more toys, and then offer prayers for them to help them heal up. So Deb goes on to say, it was one long room with many beds. After going in the room, we saw Cisco go out with Betsy. I decided to go check on her and found them in the hallway, Betsy crying and Cisco talking to her. I took Betsy out into the breezeway to talk and get some fresh air, which we both needed. After a few minutes, Brook came out and sat with us, finally back on the bus. Wow, another mix of emotions and fighting tears, but losing the battle. So, and again, it was hard for everyone, I'm sure. Deb wants to slides. So here's some of the slides of the rooms that we visited, some of the little folks. Very appreciative of the dresses and the rompers that the Kirtleys provided, so they were well received. Next stop for the day was the Peace Memorial. It is a very pretty place up above the city that was built to signify peace. The story is that a fight broke out after a soccer game with people carrying picks, shovels, etc., and lasted 3 days. It was the only war the country has ever been in. Both sides claimed victory, depending on who you ask. We sat around in the shade, ate lunches, rested, and reflected on the day so far. It was a needed break. Back on the bus and head to Agua Viva to get food bags located in the back of Tim Hines' truck and the back of Dalton's truck. We go back to the Linka reservation. So again, these are more pictures from the hospital visits, and that was just another drop in the bucket. So here's where we took the food to the Linka reservation. So I was glad to be going back, and Tim was glad to go for the first time. Half of us walked and rode with Tim Hines around to each house to give out food bags. The others went with Dalton. Tim and I were with Tim Hines. We ended up with a group of children walking with us. Dania showed up when we first got there and rode in the truck with us the whole time. She told us which houses had people and which didn't. The bags were heavy and a lot of walking, but very rewarding. These people are so grateful. This is our last event of our day and our trip. It is a great way to end a tough day, but bittersweet because our time here is ending. I gave my watch to Dania, and Donna gave her hiking boots to Dania that she had on. She was so excited that she kept kissing her watch. She laughed at Tim's Blanco legs. And that was a special moment because she pointed at my legs and I said, Blanco, and apparently she's whiter than most of her relatives or tribe, and so she felt that connection between our whiteness. Hers are very light also. She loved the shoes. She said she loves us and will be her friends for life. I so wish I could just bring her home. She is very smart, very kind, very grateful, and lovely. We could give her a life and an opportunity she can't even imagine. When we get on the bus and start driving to the gate, the children chase the bus. Steve throws his hat out, as well as his shoes. I give him my hat, and so does Tim, to throw out. Several others join in also. I struggle with tears going back to Aqua Viva. I knew this trip would affect me in many ways, and it sure has. I'm wondering. We are wondering how long before we return. And so here's some more pictures. And Brian had mentioned singing on the bus, and we did sing Rocky Top. That was one of them, and that was very, very sweet sentiment. And when we give out the food to the houses, again, there was one thing I wish I'd learned. I want to touch on some of the other slides now that I got through most of this. One thing that the little girl with the infectious laugh on the swing, and Jana, I did get a video of you walking the plank. So that little girl wanted Jana to walk the plank, and that board that was in between under the swing, she made Jana go back and forth walking that plank. That was so funny, and I got that video. I'm bad about sharing. I've not shared any of my photos. I plan on doing that, but that's one of them for Jana. And then, but the infection laugh on the swing. Now, this little girl, one thing that they didn't mention, she was sweet, but Becky told me she bit her. And Fiona said the same thing. So you got to watch this little girl. But she's very sweet, but you got to watch her. The other thing was, I was sitting down there in the background. I was giving out some toys and playing with her, and she said something to me in Spanish. And before I could get a translator, and they made fun of me the time before because I said no understando, and I'm used to saying that for my Japanese friends, but apparently it didn't work in Spanish. So then they say, no, it's no español, and I said, okay. So I told her, I said, no español. And she gets in my ear and she goes, blah, blah, blah. So I thought that's the funniest thing because I couldn't understand her. And when I did get a translator, she didn't remember what I was talking about. So anyway, I missed that part. So I cannot read that. Let's see. Again, Brook is trying to network still, and Eddie's trying to network as well. So again, the group of kids following us was really great. Deb actually wanted me to take a picture of that, and Eddie had shared that picture before with Debbie, and that girl was so sweet. This, and Stephen mentioned, this was a great way to end a very tough day for emotions. And there's Steve with the girls, so it was sweet. And this was right before we loaded on the bus to leave, so it was another drop in the bucket. So, thank you.
So the little girl on the swing, and I appreciate y'all's patience. Wayne has agreed to reduce his sermons by 10 minutes for the next month, so we will make it up to you, but he's shaking his head no. The little girl on the swing that was alluded to earlier, that was the cackling one that was having so much fun. One of the memories, I was on that build, and she started the day in this little nothing shack with very little, very poor. We give her toys, we give her food, we play with her, we give her a new house, give her a bunch of candy, and at the end of the day, she walked around to each of the missionaries and was hugging our legs and giving us candy back. Okay, she didn't have a lot in life, and yet what little she had, she wanted to give back. And so those are the times when you read a passage like it's more blessed to give than to receive, and those kind of passages really strike home when you think back to some of these memories. You can see from the guys that presented up here and the stories they told that this was a pretty important trip and a life-changing trip. We got all done, we packed up, we headed home, and then to get off the plane and walk down the ramp there at the airport and have a group of Christians from Eastside to be there with signs waiting for us was pretty awesome. I mean, you just feel like you're coming home from Afghanistan or whatever, and you have people waiting on you there. And so we really appreciate the reception. I definitely want to say thank you again to Eastside, from the elders to every single member here. It really was a team effort. You guys supported us in so many ways with your prayers and everything, and we just really, really appreciate it. So we start off asking about our efforts. Were they just a drop in the bucket? You saw several different drops tonight in the presentation, and the answer to that question is yes. The answer is yes. Isaiah 64:6 says, all of our good deeds are as filthy rags. Okay, so whatever good we do in life, whatever good deed we do, whatever we think we're doing that might be righteous, so to speak, it really amounts to nothing more than filthy rags, okay, in God's eyes. We don't earn our way to heaven. We don't earn our way, it's filthy rags. So it really is a drop in the bucket, and yet, without the drop, the bucket is empty. Okay, without those drops, that bucket is empty, and something never comes from nothing. God always starts with us and our tiny little talents. He always starts with our tiny little drops. That's what he can work with. So what does God do with it? Well, he fills the bucket. He fills the bucket up. Our efforts are multiplied. God fills all in all, as the passage says there, Ephesians 1:22, and he puts all things under his feet and gave him as head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills all in all. So God takes the drops in the bucket and he fills the bucket up to the point where the bucket is overflowing, and it's overflowing to his glory. He gets all the glory and the honor and praise, and he's the one that brings forth the increase. So we have there from Numbers 24:7, water shall flow from his buckets because he overflows them. Philippians 4:19, and my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. So God takes care of the rest. He takes our little drops and he works with them, and he can do it because he's God. So again, we leave Honduras with a lot of great memories. Tim said in one of the final devotionals, he says, Honduras is not going to leave you easily. You're going to think about this a lot. I was talking to one of our missionaries, and it hits you at weird times. You'll be sitting there having a cup of coffee, and you'll have a flashback to a moment at the children's home, and it just sticks with you, and it changes you, and you're never quite the same. You never really quite see things the same way once you've been on a mission trip. And so again, we want to thank you all. We thank you for sending us. We thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. It was life-changing, and it certainly had an impact on us, and we hope that it had an impact on the people of Honduras. I have not yet talked to the eldership about next year, so I don't want to be presumptuous, but I hope that we will be able to go again next year if the Lord doesn't come for us sooner than that. But we hope to have a trip next year, and I think what I'm going to be proposing is that we open it up and invite some of the area congregations. We want to get some of our brothers and sisters in Christ in the area, especially from some of the smaller churches. We want to get them involved in this, and so we hope to be able to open it up next year, and we certainly want you to be praying for that. You guys have now seen the report, and you've seen how it's touched people, and so I hope if you're one of those people that was on the fence like Tim was, that you'll decide to join us next year and be prayerful about that. So we're going to close now with an invitation song. There may be someone here that is not a Christian, and we certainly are willing to baptize you in Christ tonight, or maybe you want to come and study more with us and learn more about becoming a Christian, or there may be someone else here tonight that needs the prayers of the church. You're struggling with something, and if there's anything at all that we can help you with tonight, we invite you to come forward as together we stand and sing.